Body composition. Ladies, you do not get bigger. You actually get tighter. You get smaller, which is counterintuitive to what every woman thinks. You look better in your clothes. You look better in a bathing suit. You have body confidence. You feel confident because you can pick up a 50-pound bag of kitty litter. I don't know, whatever you're picking up. You can go to Home Depot and pick up a big bag of mulch. Like, it enhances your everyday life in so many different ways.
Wits and Weights community, welcome to another episode of the Wits and Weights podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Pam Sherman, a fitness expert with 27 years of experience as a group exercise instructor and personal trainer, a passionate advocate for women's health and wellness. And I invited Pam on the show to share her insights on hitting goals, getting strong, achieving longevity, all while making fitness fun if you're a woman over 50. We're going to dive into the importance of having specific goals, the benefits of strength training. We cannot emphasize that enough, and how women can integrate fitness into their busy lives. So this is practical, so you don't feel overwhelmed. We're also going to explore things like the role of community and social connections and other aspects of achieving your long-term fitness goals, because this is a long-term journey for life. Pam's journey in the fitness world began at a young age, running with her dad and discovering the joy of movement. Her philosophy that, quote, "your health is your greatest wealth," has guided her mission to empower women to prioritize their well-being. Pam's dedication to teaching women that it's not selfish to take care of themselves has transformed many lives, helping them achieve better health and confidence. Pam, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I have been excited ever since you said yes. I'm like, we get to talk. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too, because we are totally aligned here. And the listener, whether it's men or women, but women especially, who are, still have a lot of questions. And there's a lot of misconceptions in the industry about getting strong, building muscle. Am I going to get bulky? Like, is this something I really need to do as I get old? I guess I'm going to ask you an interesting question related to all that. What is the most common but underrated or not talked enough about piece of advice that you find yourself giving women over 50 today?
That getting strong now is going to affect you when you're 70, 80, and 90. And that myth, Philip, about getting bulky, I've seen exactly 0 women in 27 years get bulky from lifting, but that will not die, because that's what women think. And I'm like, put down the pink weights, pick up a heavier weight. But women do not think about when you're elderly and you fall and you break a bone, that's because your muscles are not protecting your bones. And building strength now is going to affect you later on. And I don't know how people don't think, like, I want to feel great when I'm 80. I still want to be, taking vacations and be viable. If you don't do that, your life is going to suck.
So I wonder how do we get people to live in the future like that? Because part of the challenge, and I know it, is living in the moment and thinking that that's decades away. Even when you are 60, it's still like, well, 80 is still 20 years away. How do we deal with that?
Well, I have to think most of us have a retirement account for money. So exercise now is your retirement account for later on. It's not selfish. It's not anything bad for you. It's nothing but good. So it's putting dollars in your fitness piggy bank for later on, your health piggy bank for later on. Building that now is huge, and it's never too late to start. I'm lucky. I started when I was very young, but I had 2 big brothers, so we were always an active family. Lucky, lucky, lucky. If you weren't lucky, I'm 57. You can still start at 50, 60. There's been studies that just came out. You can build muscle in the 90s, which is incredible.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. And you mentioned a story to me actually before we started recording. I would love you to share it, because I've had a couple surgeries over the past few years, and I realized that having strength trained for the years leading up to it made recovery from surgery so much easier. And really, when you fall or you get into an injury or accident, it just seems like you're hardier and more robust, and that would have a lot of positive consequences down the road. Would you mind sharing your story that you told me about the car accident?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So I've been a runner. I really do more strength training now. I have a little appetizer of running before now, but in the past, I used to be a big runner. And I'm a morning exerciser. I'm high energy in the morning. That's me. But this was a day in December when my husband and I went out to finish our Christmas shopping, went to the movies, had lunch, got home about 3:00. But I live in California. It's beautiful in December. And I remember going out for, back at the time, an easy 7-mile run. That would destroy me right now. But at the time, it was easy. And I was 2 miles from home, checked my watch. I was 8:15 pace, feeling great. When all of a sudden, a car looked left only and sped out of the parking lot, and I couldn't stop. I put my hand out and I screamed. When I screamed, I face planted into the windshield. I left a tooth in the windshield, which your brain goes night-night. It's all good. And I woke up rolling on the road. And I, of course, crawled back to safety, but I was in the ambulance and I'm like rolling my wrists, I'm rolling my ankles. And of course I lost 5 teeth that day. and had to get one more taken out. But I didn't break any bones. And later on, after I spent one night in the hospital, that's it. I thought, women my whole life have been wanting to be skinny. I need to help them chase strong because my strong muscles, I had been strength training for 2.5 years, protected my body when I needed it the most. And yes, there was a certain amount of luck involved. My mouth took most of the trauma, but still, I was really thrown from the car into the second lane of traffic. My Garmin was smashed, so I imagine I would have broke my wrist, but my Garmin, protected my wrist. But nonetheless, I only had mouth trauma, which is incredible.
Yeah. So other than a couple little pieces of armor, the rest of your armor was your musculoskeletal system, right?
Exactly. And I got discharged from the hospital the next day because I had a small brain bleed, and it healed up the next day. And I had stitches in my lip, which they said, okay, they gave me a discharge, like, get your stitches taken out. And I'm like, that's it? I just ate a windshield. That's all? You're just and I did have some CT scans every 6 months for a couple of years to make sure my brain was okay. And I went into my sports physio guy, and he worked on me every few weeks to make sure my spine was okay, but I feel great. And I know it's because my dedication to myself and my health that really made a huge difference when I really needed it the most.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you hear stories of older women, I mean, men and women, but women seem to be more prone to it because of the added muscle loss and the slightly less dense bone structure and, right? Just, biological disadvantage versus men just from a young age, unless you do something about it. And we hear about frailty and falls and all that. We focus so much on metabolic disease and like heart disease, but I know falling is one of the biggest, if not the biggest risk factor after a certain age. Isn't that true?
It is. And it's funny because I'm on TikTok.
That's the only one I'm not on. I'm on too many. So
one of my videos went like crazy, like 300,000, which was a lot for me. And it was me getting up off the ground.
Okay.
That's it. And showing various ways to do it. And the amount of comments that people said, I have a bad back, I have bad knees, my belly's in the way. I have a friend who's a firefighter, which I said in this video, he has 60% of his calls are for people that fall at home.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh. I highly encourage people to practice getting up. In fact, I have an 85-year-old client. Every time we're together, I have him get down on his hands and knees and get up just with his body weight because it's that important.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about movement patterns, squatting, pushing, pulling, picking up. That's the same. Getting up off the ground is a great one. Actually, they have Turkish get-ups if you want to do it loaded. But when these people commented on the TikTok video and are saying this stuff, were they using it as excuses or were they kind of seeking help like, okay, well, I have a bad back. What do I do?
Excuses.
Yeah. Okay.
Knee replacement. I thought my neighbor has knee replacement. She's 73. I'm going to do one with her and post that on top of that because it's just, I feel like our society is getting sicker and sicker and sicker and they're using it as an excuse. The only thing, as we can control our whole life is our health. That's it.
Yeah. If you just simply flip it around, instead of being an excuse, it is the reason you should be doing the thing. That's it. It's the reason. And then the next excuse is like, well, I can't do this or that. Well, there's a million ways to do to get healthier. Well, why don't we just address that real quickly? When somebody is open to it, but because you're a trainer, right? I'm sure you deal with the population a lot where they have pre-existing conditions, mobility issues, former surgeries, injuries, whatever. What's your approach there?
So when I first started teaching classes, it was in 1997. Everything was an hour. So I think many people in their head think they have to work out for an hour. I say you absolutely don't. Let's start with 10 minutes. In fact, I have a 10-minute playlist on my YouTube channel just for that reason, because I heard so many women over the years saying, I don't have time. You have 10 minutes. I don't care how early you go to work. You can get up 10 minutes earlier. How about I call it an exercise appetizer. Every time you go in the kitchen, if you work from home, bust out 10 to 15 kitchen counter push-ups. Start there. Every time you have a break, go out for a 5-minute walk. I am a huge proponent of adding things to your day, adding more protein, adding more vegetables, adding more walking, adding some push-ups. People go, push-ups? Yeah, start in the kitchen. And guess what? The chair is a perfect place to squat. You could ask 10 squats there. Starting small like that, taking baby steps, then you can progress. But going, I don't have time, baloney.
Yeah.
We all make time for the things that we want to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you brought it to time, which, is the one resource we can't add. And we just have to find time. But like you said, if you did an audit of just anybody listening, just do an audit of your week and come back and tell us that you don't have 8 hours a week where you could literally go to the gym and not do something unproductive. And we're not even asking anywhere close to that, right? We're asking for just 10 minutes a day. Well, what about, just to re-ask the previous question a different way, what about, somebody who's willing to do the work, but they have limitations, physical, let's say they do have the bad knee or the bad back. I know how I would approach it, but I'm curious how you would.
I have a friend who's very tall and has bad knees. I'm like, you can do a wall squat. That's the safest squat for you to do. Get those, your body in a perfect chair position. Hold that. You got to strengthen your muscles around your knees to protect your knees.
Exactly.
When people, they say, I'm like, what really is your limitation? Guess what? A wall squat hurts. Your quads are shaking. That's okay. Muscular discomfort is okay to have.
Yeah, not to the point of pain, but to the point of where you're going to stimulate it to grow. Yeah. And that's a good way to put it. It's like, what is your limit before that pain threshold that you can apply that still challenges the muscles? That's going to strengthen it. Next time you come back, progressive overload gets you closer and closer to that position. I do tell this story about my own mom over the last year only. She had, really painful knees, and it was getting worse and worse to where she almost couldn't get off the couch. And we just started squatting. And like, lo and behold, within days, the pain started to go down. So anybody listening, you got to do it. You got to try it out, right? You got to try it out. You mentioned, so we talk about health being for the long term, our greatest deposit into our, life's bank account. What about in the short term? And where I'm going with that is, I will often say that I think physical health comes before everything else. It's like the oxygen mask on the plane. You can talk about the importance of relationships, spirituality, like all the really deep, important, purposeful things in our life. And yet it can't exist unless you exist. So in the short term, what's your philosophy for prioritizing things when it comes to health, knowing that there's all these other things going on?
You have to prioritize your health, number one. And I have said the oxygen mask many, 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 to women especially, because I'm like, you're taking care of everybody else in your life.
Yeah.
But you will do a better job if you take care of yourself first. And we'll go back to the time thing. It does not take 3 hours a day to take excellent care of yourself. But can we talk about the effects of physical exercise on your mental health? It is ginormous.
Yes.
Anxiety, depression can be not lifted, but can be lessened with regular physical exercise. There is so many benefits to getting out, getting a good sweat, lifting weights, and whatever floats your boat, and strength training, of course, and strength training is going to be so important for you for the rest of your life. I mean, when I was younger, I ran miles and miles and miles and miles and miles because I was in a very dysfunctional household. That was my saving grace. My brothers turned to alcohol. I turned to running. It saved my life. So exercise for me and for many of people I know has really been a game changer for who they are today.
Yeah, that aligns with something we've talked about before on the show. I think Darlene Marshall first mentioned it from positive psychology called upward spiraling, where when you start to do one thing, it leads to another, leads to another. And if mental health, we see a clear dichotomy with mental health. Like generally poor mental health is associated with a much higher body weight and poorer health condition, period. Like we definitely see that, even though there are other variables for mental health. And of course, there's things like schizophrenia, whatever. We're not talking about disease like that, very, very important thing there. So the tangent to this is women who feel guilty about taking the time for themselves. I know that's a theme that you like to hit on, even though they know it's important. But, and then they say, but, I've got these things for my kids. I've got to take care of this. I've got maybe to have a career, whatever. How do you address that?
I was just talking with a client she has littles and they play soccer. I'm like, so you walk during the warm up, right? And during halftime because you don't have to sit and talk to the mom. She's like, I've never thought about that. You can grab moments at all your kids' sports events when most of the parents are sitting. You can be moving. If it's by a playground, you can use the bench for push-ups, for squats. You are the freak, but that's okay because you're making yourself feel better. You can look for pockets in your week to make movement happen. When you make an excuse, that's just going to lead to a lot of other bad decisions. When as well as I do, when you make that one good decision, you're going to eat better that day. You're going to drink more water. You might go out for an extra walk. One great decision in your health leads to the next. And it doesn't have to be for a lot, but when my husband and I would divide and conquer. I have 2 kids playing soccer. It was always an hour warm up. I'm like, I'm going to walk. I can talk to the moms during the game. I don't need to sit for an hour before, an hour till halftime and halftime. I mean, it's a lot of sitting. Let's move instead of sit.
Yeah, no, and I've experienced that too as a dad. Like with my girls just had their ballet recital last week, and it was a lot of just being there sitting. And I was with my wife, so we were chatting and we're not walking around, and that has its own value. And I work out, so I'm not worried about myself too much. But let's come up with a hashtag grab moments, because I love that you said that you can grab moments in your week. Hashtag grab moments. What was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, like same thing with steps. For example, some people, they say I work from home, and I'll say, well, are you ever on a Zoom call on your phone, or you're checking social? Just pace. Like when you pace while you're doing that, you're going to rack up 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 steps.
And if you have a phone call and not a Zoom, you can be out walking.
Yeah, and that too. If your signal's good enough, yes.
Yeah, my husband, he said his team gets a little butthurt when they are on a Teams call. He's like, but sometimes I just want to walk. They don't need to see me. They see me all the time.
Yeah, as long as you're engaged, yeah.
As long as you're engaged. And luckily we are in California. I mean, it's really hot now, but for the most part, you can get out on those calls and walk. But pacing, I mean, yeah, you don't have to sit. And plus your hips get tight, your back hurts.
Yes.
Your body wants to move and be upright. That's for sure.
And it's all aligned with your health and your mental health and, right? Everything, your metabolic rate, the list goes on. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today, Pam, was this idea of having a goal to work toward. And I know you're going to give it a little bit more nuanced treatment because we sometimes throw that out as lip service, like we got to have a goal and then we set up micro goals and we do tiny habits. But I want to hear where you're going with this in terms of helping us modify our behaviors and focusing on what's really important rather than kind of the short-term things we chase that aren't as important.
Well, for my whole life, my whole career, women chase a number on the scale. And I want to tell them, like, can we set up, like, can we have a protein goal? Can we have a water goal? Can we have an exercise goal? And I will tell this about myself and I sent you the video, in 1991, Terminator 2 came out, when Linda Hamilton did a pull-up. Women weren't strong back in those days. We did cardio. And I was watching the movie like, wait, we can do that? So for 20 years, I wanted to do it, put on all the vision boards. I never worked on it until I put a pull-up bar in my backyard. Well, I didn't. I paid somebody to do it. I'm like, I am going to do a pull-up. I worked for 6 months to get to one. It felt amazing. So getting past the scale. What about doing a full body push-up? Most women cannot do a full body push-up. But when you start on your knees and you start working and you keep working, you will get to a full body push-up. What about a 50-pound weighted squat? Like these things, they're so empowering when you work on physical goals. And plus, the scale usually just pisses people off. Can we not be pissed off? Can we be excited about what we're doing in the everyday instead of being pissed? And for my clients, I'm like, you need to get at least 25 grams of protein every time you eat. And they're like, what? You're going to stay full. You are going to be satisfied. You're not going to be looking for sugar afterwards. Like even those goals, when you meet them, you're like, I did a good job today. Let's be proud of our work instead of like, that scale, like, come on. I want you to celebrate what you can do instead of being determined by what that number is on the scale.
For sure. It's a huge one. And, I was listening to another podcast where they talked about measuring body composition and how one of the problems with the scale in our society is it's an easy number to get. And it also is a very, I don't want to say accurate in the ways that people think it's accurate, but it's like, it's a real reflection of whatever your mass is that gravity is pulling you through the earth with, right? Like it's a real number. It's not like a body fat number on a scale, which you can't believe because it's affected by all these other things. And so it's kind of like simple, easy, readily available. And I think there's an aspect to that psychologically where we grasp onto it in addition to all the female specific, and societal and cultural things as well. And so what you're saying is, look, you can replace that with other easily measurable, short-term, process-oriented goals that daily, hourly, you could like win. Having enough protein, having water. I do love the training and exercise stuff. Like definitely a lot of women I've worked with, the push-up, the pull-up, going for that and just trying to scale into it and getting that first full body. And for a guy, it's like trying to do it with one arm, which is really, really hard. And an X pound squat or whatever. It's really awesome. And yeah, I love the passion you have, Pam, because we do need to get excited about it. And when we see a number on the scale go up a pound and get discouraged, and that makes our whole day, that's a problem.
It is a problem. And you know as well as I do that women especially are so hard on themselves. In fact, almost every client over the years, the first thing they want to tell me is what they hate. And I'm like, no. We're only talking about wins. You're beating yourself up too much. Let's talk about the things you did great this week. And there's been times when I've gotten injured and out of shape and all the things. And I still remember 2014 having to do push-ups on my knees because I was out of shape and my dad had just died, all the things. When I got to that first full body one, that felt great. And so I want to empower women to go like, you can work towards something. And when you get there, it's going to feel amazing. And I want you to be so proud of your work.
Yeah, 100%. Focusing on just the wins is right up my alley, because I'm an uber optimistic person. Yeah, you too, right? And while it may make some people like throw up in their mouth when you constantly talk about positivity to them, the evidence is pretty settled that having this optimism lens or optimism bias on the net, on the whole, is going to make your life just so much better because you're going to have bad things happen. Everybody's going to have bad things happen. And you're also going to be disappointed when you go for stretch goals, and that's okay too. But if you're always looking ahead toward, the hopefulness of it and pursuing those wins, right, in the positive way, you're going to get way more of them than someone who's not. That someone who's the Eeyore of the world.
And when they say I can't, I'm like, what can you do? Let's think about all the things you can do. Let's list them off because you can't. That's a very small part of your whole day. I'm like, oh, when you put it that way, I am crazy optimistic for people, and I'm sure it does annoy some people, but that's the way I am.
And at the end of the day, we say that, I say that, I joke around it, and yet I know that I know people like to be around that. I see how supportive it is in a community setting where you do that as long as it's productive, right? Like you're helping people reframe something, not in a delusional way, but just saying, let's change the perspective or the angle we look at it from, because it's not going to help us to do otherwise, but it will help us if we have an action we can take going forward, knowing that it can go in this positive direction.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'd like to give a big shout out to my nutrition coach, Philip. With his coaching, I have lost 17 pounds. He helped me identify the reason that I wanted to lose weight, and it's very simple: longevity. I want to be healthy, active, and independent until the day I die. He introduced me to this wonderful little app called Macro Factor. I got that part of my nutrition figured out. Along with that is the movement part of nutrition. There's a plan to it, and he really helped me with that. The other thing he helped me with was knowing that I need to get a lot of steps in. So the more steps you have, the higher your expenditure is, and the easier it is to lose weight. When it's presented to you like he presents it, it makes even more sense. And the other thing that he had was a hunger guide, and that really helped me. So thank you, Philip.
Let's talk specifically about strength training then, because that kind of stands above most other pillars here when we talk about longevity and, like you said, not getting killed by a car, maybe surviving the car accident. We can't always control what happens to us. But how does that contribute to the long-term health and longevity? Specifically, can you convince me we have to be strength training? Is that your position?
We have to be strength training. How many times are you in the grocery store where you see a person over like this pushing a grocery cart and you think if they fall, they're breaking a bone? And I think after I did that video that went crazy on TikTok, I looked it up and it said if you're over the age of 70, there's a 70% chance of dying within 6 months of a fall. And that's because they don't have any muscle to protect their bones. So we're talking about what we do now for sure is affecting us later on. And again, Philip, we're not talking about hours in the gym, but starting, if you are doing nothing now, starting with body weight exercise is great. Yes, you will progress eventually because you need to add to the load eventually. But starting now is going to protect you later on. And I know I have seen my father-in-law died of obesity. My dad died of Alzheimer's. We're all going to die. But if we can be as strong as we can for as long as we can, that quality of those later years is really going to be high for me.
I agree. So when you talk about these little snacks, what do you call them? Fitness, I don't know what term you use, but I want to be clear to people. Is it, if somebody's completely sedentary, what's the route to go from there to resistance training? Because one of the messages I see in the listicles, and I don't know if I already put out the short episode about this where I said, don't move, just move is not enough. It's all you have to do is move and then you'll be healthy and then end of article. And I'm I don't think that's enough. It's fine. Yeah, it's a tiny step better than not moving, but it's far cry from where we need to be. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you need to start with every time you go in the kitchen, do 10 push-ups and 10 squats.
There you go.
Once that's easy, move it to 15. Once that's easy, move it to 20. Once you can do that 5 times a day, it's time to join a gym.
Cool. A progression, and it's right off the bat, you're loading yourself against gravity with something. I love that. Okay. What are some benefits of strength training that you've heard about or you're aware of that are maybe overlooked or not widely discussed? Because I know we could just list, bone density and this and that. What do you think?
Body composition. Ladies, you do not get bigger. You actually get tighter. You get smaller, which is counterintuitive to what every woman thinks. You look better in your clothes. You look better in a bathing suit. You have body confidence. You feel confident because you can pick up a 50-pound bag of kitty litter. I don't know, whatever you're picking up. You can go to Home Depot and pick up a big bag of mulch. It enhances your everyday life in so many different ways.
I like that you get smaller because we do talk about skinniness and using a detrimental sort of way, right? I just want to be skinny.
Yes.
And you're saying that, obviously you're going to build strength and muscle, and that's going to make you leaner, tighter, more toned, muscles denser than fat. And therefore you're going to look smaller, but in a healthy way.
In a healthier way. It's funny. My personal progression over the years, I used to have ginormous leg when I was a big time runner. My legs are smaller, but they're more muscular now because I do more strength training. My clothing size went down a couple sizes when I only strength train. My body weight isn't a whole lot different, but my body's tighter from strength training. And so for all the women who think, I'm going to get big bulk, I'm like, no, you're actually going to tighten up. You're going to get that toned look that the women are always looking for.
For sure. For sure. Now what about the overachievers out there? And my clients, you know who you are. The overachievers who go through a successful period, let's say a year or two of solid strength training, they're feeding themselves, they're fueling themselves. And we should probably talk a little bit about the food side of it too, because we're not always dieting, right? Fueling yourself, they build some muscle, they lose some fat, but they're still not quite where they want to be. So like you said, they have some definition. Maybe their upper body is a little more defined. Maybe they have bigger hips and thighs, like fat, storage there, because that's how their body is shaped. And that's the last place to go. But everything else is now kind of trimmed down a bit. And now they still notice the thighs. Like, how do you approach that as a woman to another woman?
It's time to go into a diet phase. And, how are your weekends? That's the big thing and I know for years I struggled with this, is like, I hope I have a good weekend. You actually cannot eat I know you don't say swear words, like an idiot on the weekends and expect to continue to see gains on the scale or, mostly on the scale. So you really do have to tighten up what you eat. And as you get older, it definitely is not as easy as when you're in your 30s or 40s. So you got to tighten things up.
Yeah. No, tighten it. I get it. And sometimes I say eat like a child, but yeah, same thing, right? Eat like an a-hole, I know is what you were going to say. So, okay. All right. Yeah. I know we mainly wanted to talk about like having the goals and having that drive you, but I think it is important. Some of the body image issues definitely come up with all of this. You want to say something?
No, it's just, in my experience, women lose it last where they want to lose it the most.
Yes.
So if they have hips, that's going to be the last to go. If that's what they want to go, it usually starts up here at your head and travels down. So it is not a fair process. It's not an easy process, but it can happen definitely with dedication to your nutrition, like spot on most days of the week, like six and a half days a week.
Yeah. I'm challenging you on this question only because some people find it easier than others. Men and women find, some have a higher metabolic rate than others. Some have been building muscle longer than others. And some just store fat in the worst places for them, right? Like this mentally. If somebody has been dieting and they have lost some fat and they've, they leaned out a bit, but they have more to go, how do they get driven from a goal perspective or a, psychological perspective to continue knowing that it could take another 2 or 3 years to get the physique they're going for?
Time is going to pass anyway.
Yeah.
How do you want to feel in 5 years? That's it. Your health is a marathon. It's never a 100-meter dash. And you have to have the long range vision of, well, first of all, we were talking about how you want to feel when you're 80, but your goals, sometimes it is like an inchworm to get to where you want to be. But it's going to get to, what are we in? It's going to get to 2030 anyway. Do you want to feel amazing by then, or 2027? 3 years is not a long time in the whole scheme of your whole life. So it's okay for it to happen little by little. It's unfortunate in our society today, Instagram, TikTok, everything's fast. Your health is the only thing that will never get you fast results.
Yeah, not to mention on social media, the results are completely skewed in what you actually see. So it's giving us unrealistic expectations even above and beyond that. Time is going to pass anyway. So that's a great point. Then you mentioned how you feel. Why is it important now to focus on how you feel? Because you mentioned some objective measures like the protein and the steps and whatnot. Let's talk about how you feel rather than just your physical appearance as another way to drive you day to day, rather than thinking, 3 or 4 years and being impatient about that.
But can we talk about when the last time you had the flu or were injured and you just felt like absolute garbage? Every day that you wake up and you feel great, that's a win. That's something to celebrate, because I know we all know people that are very sick or that have passed who would give anything to be back here today. When you wake up and you have a good day and you feel great, no aches and pains, you get a great workout, that is a celebration. That is a huge win in your journal, and everybody should be keeping a journal of their wins, because we all have the things that we don't like in our heads when we got to kick that to the curb and celebrate the good. You wake up, you feel great, good night's sleep, you're going to crush that workout. It is going to be a great day.
So you mentioned looking back on something where you didn't feel great and then kind of comparing how you feel during that scenario now after doing something. what should people maybe be tracking or journaling in the here and now? If they're listening to this, they're like, okay, how do I do that? What are 3 or 4 things maybe I should be really paying attention to? And then what do I tie them to get that cause and effect of what I'm doing?
I think it would be great to journal your workouts and what weight you're using. So you know, oh, a month ago, I was doing 10 less pounds on whatever that I'm doing now. That's something to celebrate. It's good to journal your sleep if you don't wear a tracker. I love my little ring tracker because sleep, especially for women in the 50s, is so important. Track how you feel after your meals, right? Some food is going to sit better with you than others. Track how you feel, like actively think, what am I thankful for today? Starting and ending the day with gratitude is so important. And a lot of times my clients, your clients, they focus on the negative, like my butt, my belly, my whatever. What about what you did today? Did you do a push-up? Oh my gosh, did you do a squat? Be thankful for what you can do. Like you and I, Philip, look at the positive, kick the negative to the curb, and let's celebrate what you can do. What coins are you putting in that long-term piggy bank? I want you to think about that.
Yeah. Gratitude's a good one. I know I've talked about this before that I'm not a huge journaler for whatever reason. I have my own methods of thinking about, reflecting on things and documenting things. And there are different tools for different people, right? It's the principles that matter, whether I'm rationalizing a way or not. But you'll never win that battle with me. It's been long enough. And I'm
That's
like,
okay.
That is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's cool. But oh man, where was I going with this? See, this is what happens. This is not, folks, a lot of these interviews that you listen to now, they're not really scripted, right? We want to have a conversation. I was going to ask something about, oh my goodness. What's that?
You can use your voice memos too. You don't actually have to write in a journal.
That's true. Yeah.
And I keep on my notes, I keep track of my workout so I can see what the weight I did last time. If I need to increase it, I'll put like increase next time. Like it's good to track really everything about your health.
For sure. And okay, I know what it was. It was about the reframing side of things. Let's dig in a little more practically on that. I'll just throw one at you like that I heard from one of my community members recently. And I addressed it with her in my way, but I'm curious how you would do it. A statement like, I'm just addicted to sugar. Like she knows all the things she wants to address, tracking, increasing the protein, training, but there's always this like, but I'm addicted to sugar.
It's time to break up with a bad boyfriend. That's what I call sugar. Like you want to go somewhere, you have goals. You have to be an adult sometime and get out of your own way. Like, come on now. You can have it on special occasions, but really with all the information we know about sugar, about how it's bad for our brain, right? It's actually for women, the number one bad thing you do for your skin is eat sugar. And I have wrinkles. I'm 57. I don't want more wrinkles, but you have to adult up sometimes. And it's a mindset. You are addicted, take 2 or 3 days off, take a week off, and then see how you feel. Like it's okay to get out of your own way. Be like, okay, I'm addicted, but it's not serving me. So I'm going to break up with my bad boyfriend for a week and see how I feel. She might feel amazing. I don't know. What did you say? I'm like kind of back to basics with that.
Yeah, no, there's so many ways in it. And like it's hard. I'm not trying to quiz you on the show. Honestly, like you never know with the individual. You have to talk it through with them. I think for her, it was more about let's reflect on, is it really sugar that you're addicted to? Is there certain types of foods containing sugars and fats? And let's identify where that comes in. And maybe if we start adding in the things that you're missing that you need to serve you, we're going to push those out. And what you're talking about is controlling your environment and actually having a food plan. That is also a really effective tool, right? So for folks listening, like when you go to a restaurant, saying that I don't just drink a lot, like I'm not just, my self-identity is I drink a lot. Okay. Like you said, what was the term? Woman up or
adult
up. And say, okay, I'm going to limit myself to 2 drinks. So I've always wrestled with the words restrictive, strict, and deprivation. And even though I use the word restrictive usually to mean deprivation, we do want to have some strictness about certain things. We want to have boundaries, right? It's kind of what you're getting at. It's like, you're not depriving yourself. You're just saying, look, I'm an adult and I have a plan and my body's important and my longevity is important. So I'm going to make these decisions. Is that a fair assessment of it?
Yes. I just had a client who went out to dinner. She had a drink or 2, I can't remember, an appetizer, and then rice with her dinner. I'm like, okay, so next time, pick one. Have the glass of wine or the appetizer or the rice. That's a lot of extra. And you have goals. And she's like, oh, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
And then I do have a client who does have a problem with sugar. And I just said, hey, I double dog dare you to stop for a week.
Yep.
You know that once you stop, and she's like, oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so glad you put that out there to me. Because she has at her office, there's candy dishes and then there's weekends. And I'm like, give me a week and then tell me how you feel. And she just needed that little extra push, like, okay. And she's like, thank you so much. I got this. I'm like, yes. As a coach, I know I believe in them, but they have to hear that and they go, okay, I can do it.
So true. So true. And sometimes you need a little extrinsic motivation, or you need a reminder that there's a different choice you can make, because we get in a rut. And I can tell you, until now, that this triggered me to think about my sugar days. I used to love candy, and I used to eat a lot of it at night in front of the TV from our snack drawer. It was just there, right? That was kind of like an easy change that I was just not making. And I knew in the back of my head, out of guilt, right? Every night I had it, it was like this guilt of I shouldn't do this. And at some point, who knows what it was probably my birthday around Halloween. I said, okay, I'm just at the worst time of the year for having candy is the time I'm going to go cold turkey. And for me, that was like a beginning of the end of like years and years of development from that point. So it can be very powerful, Pam. What you're saying is just making that choice. Even if it seems like you're cutting something or restricting, you're not really doing that. You're just making this pivot, you know.
Did you have a sugar headache for a couple days?
I probably had more. It could have been. It was probably more of like a what you're missing headache, right? Like it could be anything that, or your hunger headache from because you're expecting to have it at this time. I might have even substituted it with something else like popcorn or something that was like more voluminous, less calorie dense. And that's fine too, right? Like it shifts you away from the thing that you don't want.
And was that in your working out days or prior to your working out days?
It was my working out improperly days.
Your CrossFit days?
Yeah, CrossFit, cardio, not showing up consistently. Yep. Well, that was right. That was late 2019, right before I really started to figure things out. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
It is, but I love hearing about your journey because like so many people just assume like we've had it together our whole lives. We've never made mistakes.
No. It's still every day. There's probably something that I quote unquote slip up or make a less than optimal choice. But like on the whole, as we talk about, if you've got the pillars there, if you've got the foundation and the consistency and habits, you actually have the flexibility to constantly make mistakes. Like that's the way I like to put it is you've built in a buffer for yourself to be human, you know?
Yeah. I have a funny story. In the 80s, I was running marathons with my girlfriends because we ran cross country in high school. And then we went to the Ohio State University where none of us were good enough to run there. So we ran the Columbus Marathon. But this was the 80s. All ate terribly because we were in college and I was running with a friend. I'm like, hang on for a second. And I pulled up my shirt and I'm like, is there something wrong with my back? Philip, was my back fat jiggling?
All right.
I mean, we've all had our struggles. Like every professional I know has gone through their struggles with their health and wellness. And I was like, went back because we didn't have mirrors in the dorm rooms.
Yeah.
I remember getting on my parents' scale 30 pounds more than I am now running marathons. Like we all have our struggles.
Yeah. It's what makes us human. I mean, if anything, trying to be perfect could be the thing holding you back. Right. So when it comes to what you alluded to then, being a coach and helping people, when we think of relatedness, community, not doing it alone, asking for help, I think those are all very powerful, very important themes. What role do they play in all of this? Like in the extreme, could someone just say, I'm going to do this all by myself, go alone and be successful? And even if they could, wouldn't they be more successful with help? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
100%. I just had a client today say, I thought I could do it by myself and I didn't do anything. Community is so important. I need to be around other women who are on the same journey. It doesn't matter the body size, but on the same journey that so many people, and I'll say women, think I can do it, but there's nobody to fall back on. There's nobody to ask questions to. There's nobody to say I'm having a bad day or I messed up or look at the win that I had. Cause I always ask them like, let's share wins. Going alone, it's lonely. It's so much more fun to do it in a community.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's lonely. Yeah, for sure. And there's some things like people who have a home gym, right? They have that concern. I especially met women who are doing the group classes, right? But it's not quite cutting it from a strength training perspective. And actually, I'm curious your thoughts on that because you want them to lift weights. Let's say they don't even have access to that kind of gym in the region that they live in. They have the option of doing a home gym, right? And there's still these group classes there, but they're not really focused on strength training. What are your thoughts on an approach for that person?
No. I mean, you have to have progressive overload. And I have taken classes recently. My sister-in-law, when I visit her in Buffalo, strength classes, too fast. You can't get proper load. You can't think about your form. So I would say in that situation, getting a home gym is going to be your best bet. go to take group classes for yoga, for a core workout, but for strength, you cannot get enough weight. Yes, it's fun. Maybe go to one a week for fun, but to see the results that you want, you have more than the group class.
There you go. No, I love that. Kind of mixing it up. And if you need a group class for some of the other things, just don't make it the priority associated with the training. Do the training at home and find your community elsewhere, to satisfy that itch. And then this came to mind too. What are your thoughts on women coaching men, men coaching women? Do you have any feelings on that?
I've coached a few men in my day, and I've been very successful with two. And one of them started out successful and then didn't want, I was trying to be a hard trainer and he didn't listen to me and we had to break up because he wasn't taking my advice. But the other two were like, you obviously know what you're doing. And I coached them with food only, not for workouts. And it was great. So you just have to find the person that you connect with, right? You have to be relatable. That's all.
Yeah. No, I'm always curious about that. And I thought of it recently because, well, first of all, I'm always talking to women on the show now, and I coach women, and I'm talking menopause more and more. And it's like a year or two ago, I would have thought, that's crazy. There's no way I'm going to do that, or people are even going to trust me. But like you said, you just have to empathize, and no one person has every experience of the people you're coaching, right? So whether it's men or women. And do you know Ali Gilbert? She's got a pretty big following. She calls it the queen of men's health. Her demographic is men increasing their testosterone, making them show up in the bedroom, that kind of messaging, which is really cool. So I think it's depending on, like you said, you've got to connect with the person, be authentic, and just be open to helping them however you can and listening to them. Yeah.
You do your homework. You have these women on your show. You have Karen on your show, right? Karen Martell, you have all this great information. So it's not like you're helping women without any idea what you're talking about. You're learning probably from all your guests.
That's exactly it. You hit it on the head. You see, the listener knows this is my masterclass of my coaching improvement by listening and talking to all of you. But also I only bring on the best of the best, Pam, because I want you to, share your story with the world, and you've got great advice from a different perspective usually. And so this has been an awesome conversation. I'd love to ask this question of all guests. You know what's coming. Is there a question, or what question do you wish I had asked? And what is your answer?
Well, I do want to go back to the group classes because I actually teach 2-step classes a week. And so many women have fun in group exercise. I don't want to say, my standard answer was, what is the best exercise? Okay, the best exercise is the one you love to do. And when women say, I don't like to work out, what did you like to do as a kid? Jump rope. Might need to wear a pad, but jump rope right now. It's still fun. And strength train 2 to 3 times a week, but do what you love. So if you love Pilates, oh my gosh, go to Pilates, but that is not your strength training. It drives me absolutely crazy, Philip, when women say, I do Pilates, that's strength. I'm like, it's not strength. So do what you love, go to group, get your group experience, have an amazing time, but find that way to get that strength in 2 to 3 times a week, because that is what's going to get you to 80 and feeling great.
Yeah, I think it's good to bucket. Like you said, put these into buckets and put that priority of training at the top, and then find the way to, there's no excuse. You've got to get that done. So get it done. It's kind of like you have to have food to live, and you have to kind of have a house or a place to live, and you have to have a little bit of money to be able to survive. Right? You have to have these things. They're non-negotiables. How you do it is very flexible. But then, like you said, there's this other bucket of movement, fun, hobbies, community, whatever you want to fit it in, where these other activities can go. And even if they, let's say, take a tiny bit away from your training and recovery, it could be worth it, right? The trade-off could be worth it for you if the alternative is you're not doing any of that stuff.
Yeah. And I know barre is so popular. I took a barre class.
Pam just made a face. For those of you listening to the audio, she just made kind of a disgusted face.
If I offended anybody that takes barre, that is not strength training.
Yeah.
That is 150 reps of a squat. That's not strength training.
Yeah. So don't market it as such. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not full range of motion. They're like half squats. So if you love it, oh my gosh, do it. But then go to the gym and lift heavy weights, because that's what's going to get you to your long-term health investment, your retirement fund. That's really what's going to get you the most bang for your buck.
Lift weights. That is your retirement fund for life. Find a fun way to do it, and listen to what Pam's saying. Look her up, and I want to provide the listener a way to do that. So Pam, where can listeners learn more about you and your work?
On Instagram and TikTok, I am lowercase Pam _Sherman1. My website is going to change, but for right now, it's theperfectbalance.guru. I have a YouTube channel, Pam Sherman, where I have a 10-minute playlist for those of you that want to start working out and don't know where. I've got plenty of bodyweight workouts. If you need to stretch and nobody stretches enough, I have a whole stretching playlist. I have a bunch of workouts there. So if you want to work out from home, I would love it if you give it a try and then leave a comment so I know that you did it.
All right, cool. I'm going to throw those in there. Let's say the top 3 would be IG, TikTok, and YouTube, maybe to send folks to.
Yes.
So we'll throw those in the show notes as always. And Pam, this was fun. I mean, the time flew by. We covered a lot of really inspiring, motivating things, but we don't just want to motivate women, right? We want them to take the action. So, and I know that's what you're all about. So thank you so much for coming on.
It was amazing. And we talked for a long time. I'm sure I could keep talking and I got to go, but thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's such a pleasure to talk fitness and food and all the things with you.
Agree. It was so much fun. Thanks for coming on.